All right, so I'm going to continue this week by first going over the homework assignment, the calculator one, at least one of the examples of them. I know that we in class this is actually I just brought still have this window open from last week, and it's I'll go over the code again because this is the exact number. This is the exact assignment that we had last week. I'll just add the other one or two more functions in. So we have, we're supposed to prompt the user for two numbers, and number one and number two. So here is my code for this. Let me see where my CSS is for this. Hold on a second. Let me take a quick look. I don't have to find it. So I'm just gonna do it from scratch. It'll just take a minute or two. I'm just gonna do a bunch of copy and pastes in order to speed up the process. Again, this is just a quick review of the calculator to make sure we get it. I'm going to put it in the head here. I'm going to call it, I'll do it C for calculator just to save myself some typing, .js, and this is my HTML file. I'm going to close my HTML, I'm going to have my body and close my body in order to get this to work here. I'm going to close it really fast and close the HTML. I'll close the head, close the HTML, and yeah, okay, fine. So it's always good to get your indenting There are beautifier programs out there. If I'm not sure if I showed you that or not. You just have to look online for like HTML beautifier, and you could take your sloppy code, put it in there. As long as it's proper code, it could format the indenting very nicely. I do that all the time just because I don't know, to save time. And now let me open up. I have my own folder here, so let me save this as. I'm going to save this as C1 for calculator 1.html, right? So that's my HTML. Right now, there's nothing there, obviously, and I'm just going to, at the same time, I'm going to create my JavaScript file. Just I'm going to start it off, and I'll start it with, I guess, an add button. So I'm going to do file new, and I'll do, function add, and I'm going to save this as. I'll save it as C1.javascript.js. Okay, fine. So now that I've done that, basically I'm just wanted to prompt the user for a number, two numbers pretty much. And so again, I'm just going to copy this down from my notes here that I have. And this is very similar to what I did last week, right? Num1 and num2. And I'm just going to make sure this looks good. So I'm going to run it up, run. And so we have num1 and num2, good. Right now, it's just, just they're boxes here. I'm not really doing anything, but whatever. I can do something in a second. I just always like to run to make sure everything is working well. Then I want to add a button in order to go into do the addition. So, and today I'm going to show you a way to kind of get around this add click on click. But until then, I'll first put this in on click add button. It's a function, so this function will fire as soon as it's invoked, which is when you actually go and click it. So let me now put this into the JavaScript. As of now, nothing is there. This is the add button just to make sure that it's working. I always build my code a little bit at a time just to make sure that this works. And even before doing the addition or subtraction, I want to make sure it works. I just want to do an alert. I'm very big on the alerts. I say hello just to make sure it works. Go back to my script here, run it, do add, and it's not working. See, that's why I check it out. Why isn't it working? Let's take a look here. Add button, and here I have my button on click add button, and I do C1, I called it, C1.javascript. Make sure it works again. There, hello. But you see, like, that I tested it out. It's always good, again, to build it up a little bit at a time. Very big on that. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm going to actually I want to get some type of result. So I need a place to put the result. So I'm going to put the result in I guess I'll put it, I'll put it underneath the button itself over there. And so in order to make this show up, I'm going to have to do the following. Again, take a look, make sure it's nothing showing up there now because there's no text there. I'm going to go back to my JavaScript file. Here's my JavaScript file. So instead of saying alert this time, I want to get a, I'll say var n1 for number 1. You could call it n as long as it's a valid identifier. I want to basically, what did I call these? I called it input 1, input 2, right? Input 1, input 2. So I'm just going to steal my code from over here to make it faster. And I'm going to say the first number 1 is going to be, I'm reading from the inside out, right? I'm going to do the document.getElement by ID input 1.value. That'll get the value of that input. It's going to do a parse int, which means it's going to take that integer or that number or whatever is in there and turn it into an integer. You can't go and add words. I mean, you could concatenate them, but you can't go and add them. So I'm going to turn it into an integer, and that's going to go into variable num1, and then I'm going to get the second one, that's going to go into num2, and my final one is just going to go and take the entire result of num1 and num2, put it into it's going to put the inner HTML of the element that has the result. It has the ID of result, and it's going to change it to the num1 plus num2. So let's just make sure that works. I'm going to run it, and I'm going to put the number 2 here and the number 5 here. I do add, and there's 7. Great. I also asked for a reset button, I believe, and so let's quickly put the reset button in. The reset button could fire either when it's on a load, which we'll talk about that later on, or we could actually just click it to make sure that it went on a click itself. So I'm going to go back to my actual HTML here and put in a reset button. So on click, I'm going to do reset this, or I just do a reset result. And so now I have to create the function. So I'm going to go back to my code over here. I make a brand new function. I'm going to call it reset result. I could make this a little neater if I want. And I'm going to call it reset result. And close it up. And all you have to do for the actual reset itself is we want to make sure that the values themselves are basically cleared out. So I want to take the document, and I'm going to, by element ID, input 1 is the .value is going to equal nothing here for value 2, and the result's also going to equal nothing. So let's see if this works now. Go back to my problem here, run it, and we're gonna, I'll change this. Oh, let's just see if it works. Reset. So there we go. Great. I'll put the number, I don't know, 20. Well, we know this works. We could actually make this a little bit. Let me first add one more. I said I was going to add at least one more function to it. I asked you to do what the add, subtract, multiply, divide, and mod. So let's do one more. Let's do together the multiply button. So they'll put that right next to this one over here, and they each follow the same format more or less. I could do a lot of copy and pasting here. I'll do mult for mult, right? And instead of this can't be called add button because we're now multiplying, so we want to call something else. So I'm going to call it mult button for multiply, and make sure it looks okay, right? So there's multiply, and I just have to create my function for that now. Go back into my code here, and I'm going to take this and do a copy paste, and I'm going to call this mult, and this is going to be this times that. Yeah, that's it, I think. Run it and make sure it works. 8, and multiply it, and 32. Great. Reset. So this is good. This is, this looks, something like this, obviously we'll put in for the division, for all the other features as well. We could, if we wanted to, this is jumping a little bit into what I'm going to be doing later on in the class, but we could do some tests here. We could actually put in, let me just change this up instead of just doing the normal stuff here. I'm gonna change it a bit, so I'm deviating. I did not ask you to do this, but you could have done it. I'm going to make a new ID here. Oh, I could actually keep this result. I could keep this result. And let's say that the user puts in their code here. They put in, I don't know, instead of the numbers, they put in, instead of a 10, this is a 10 here. And this over here is an O, right? So people often, now they don't always make that mistake, but they might put in a letter instead of a number, or just you want to do some error checking, right? You want to do so. If I tried to add this now, I'm going to get a weird, some type of weird result. So instead of saying nan, instead of saying which it's some type of error, let's see if, oh, actually, I'll show you this later because this has to do with an if statement, and we're going to do the if statement today. So I'll hold off on that. I won't show you this right now. But what we did do already actually is we have spoken about the concept of on loads. When a document actually loads up, you're able to send an actual command. So what we could do is this also. Let me show you this really fast. Back in my JavaScript, I could add this line over here. I'm going to say the following. I'm going to do window dot on load. This is new. I don't know if this is new or not, but I'm showing it to you. I mean, we've talked about on loads, but I'm going to use it a little bit differently now. Function. So when the window loads, that means when the actual program, when your file renders on the screen, I want to run a function, and I'm going to do a function over here. And let me just make sure that this works. Windows unload. I'm going to do an alert. I'll call it loaded. And let's make sure that this is actually working. I'm going to run this up, and we see the word loaded. Everything else still has the same functionality, right? I could do 43 here, number here, and add it up. It's all going to work. But that loaded does a lot for me. How is that a lot? How is this going to actually go and do something for me? Well, that means when the program, when your page renders, when it loads, I could call, let's say, for example, reset results. So now, notice here, I'm putting in this method over there, this function over here, right? I'm going to clear my screen. I'm going to do Control R for reset. Okay, look what happens. This cleared out. Before, if I didn't have this over here, let me demonstrate really fast, because you can't also see me loading the page because I do it off screen. It's my hands here. You don't see it. I'm going to comment this out for a moment, and I'll show you the difference. Right? I'm saving it. Going back to my document here. I'm going to put in a number here and a number here, and I'm going to add them together. Great. I'm hitting now Control R, right? But these numbers are still there. They're there because that's by the default. That's most programs want you to keep in the text box, the actual text that's in there. They want you to keep it. They want you to keep it there. So fine, and that's great. But let's say you don't want it. Let's say you don't want to keep the information there. How would you get rid of it when the program loads? Well, you would do this on load. When the program loads now, you'll see I'm doing, again, Control R. We'll see that it disappears. Why does it disappear? Because when it loads, I'm running the function reset result, and it's going to clear out all of the options I had before, and it's going to it'll appear, it will be emptied out. So yeah, that's the main part of the program. Obviously, to continue on, for those of you who have having difficulties with it, just going to continue on here in your HTML. You're going to add the division button and the subtraction button and the modulus button, and then have corresponding functions to go along with each one. So that's that. The second one that we dealt, I'm not going to go through the whole Mad Libs one, but with Mad Libs one, I wanted you to focus on here. I'll do a quick. I'll change this a little bit to a Mad Lib. I'll just modify this just a little bit. I don't want to get into, I don't spend the whole class working on this. I'll say my HTML, instead of doing add, I'll say, I don't know, I'll do noun, and I'll do, I don't know, mood. Okay, this is gonna be really silly. It's gonna be really silly Mad Lib. But and over here, instead of saying it, I'm just gonna call this, I don't know, ML1 for Mad Lib 1, and no, I don't even need this. I don't know what I'm doing here. I need a text box. Oh, here. I want it here. I want this. Oh, input 1, right? Instead, I'm gonna call this. I messed that up. Yeah, I'll do it again. This is mood. I'm gonna put in a mood, like happy, sad, and I'm gonna put in over here. We'll do. I'll do a name. Name, right? So they're gonna put in a. Let me make sure this is looking good here. Hold on a second. Run it. Okay, so I'm gonna put in a mood here. I'm gonna put in a name. Fine. Then over, I don't need these buttons anymore. I'll just need one button to like create it. So I'm gonna get rid of this for a moment. And so I'm gonna put in let me see how it looks, right? And save it, hold on. Save, run this, okay, fine. And I'm gonna say over here, make my game, make my game. And the end result, I will have to have a place to display it. So I'm gonna make another div here. I'm going to have div ID is equal to my game or my story, right? And close the div. Okay, I'm missing something. Does it look good? It looks fine. Oh, I'm missing a close quote. All right, fine. So again, let me just run this up. Okay, make my game. So I'm going to put in now I have to actually create the Mad Lib. I requested that you have at least 5 different parts of speech for it, but I'm just going to have, because I'm trying to do this fast, I'm just have one. I'm going to get rid of all this and get rid of all this, and I'll just make the last one here called, what do I call it? I'll call it make story. Make story. So I'm copying make story, the name here. I'm going to put it over here, make story. And I'm just going to make, I'll do variable t1 for text1 is going to be equal to, okay. And now I want to get well, let me first go over here. I'm going to have my document get element by ID is, I'll say, I don't know, name var name is equal to get element by ID, and we're going to call it, what do I call it? Oh, here, this should be called mood, and this should be called name. Again, you can name anything you want, but I did this for mood and name. Over here, get it by, okay, and dot val, it's a text box, right? So I believe it's dot value. Yeah, I think so. And then we have, the next one is going to be, we're here, mood. Mood is going to be mood over there, right? And finally, get rid of all this. I'm going to have my inner HTML, my inner HTML over here for my make story. I need an ID. ID my story is going to be, I'll do is equal to, and this is basically what all leading up to. I'm going to say name plus, I'll say is plus mood. Not very exciting. But again, what's happening is that I will be getting the name, I'll be getting the mood. One goes into name, one goes into mood, and I'm going to say the name, whatever the name was, is, and then a specific mood. I wrote this kind of fast, so I'm not even sure if it's going to work. Let's see if it works. If not, we troubleshoot it. I'll say David, happy. Make my game. No, it didn't work. Would have been nice to get perfect the first time. Let's see. Inspect HTML. Do I get an error? Or do I get a, was it an error? This is the fixed up version. I'm not sure what exactly went wrong, but everything is working out well. I get get element by ID name, get element by ID mood, which corresponds to my, over here, my name and the mood. once I get those, it's going to I'm going to change the inner HTML of my story, which is over here, and my story. After you click the button, we're going to get name, whatever you put it in, is, and then the specific mood, and the result is this: David is happy, or sad, or excited, or whatever. So yeah, so that's what I'm looking for. Oh, and I requested that you kind of utilize your CSS skills as well, which means make the background nice, maybe put a border around it. You could change the font, go back to the skills that we learned in the first part of the course, instead of making it just like plain text. The reason why I make this plain text all the time when I'm teaching is because it's just much faster, and I'm not going to go over the CSS that we've already learned. So, but if I ask you to try to make some nicer CSS, so try to make it nicer. If you're going to hand it in, to make it as best as possible. All right, fine. All right, so I'm going to continue now with basically, I'm not going to continue from the next chapter deals with something called arrays, and if we have time, we'll get to it. But I want to make sure that I focus on a few other features of JavaScript that are important for you to be able to program, and some other features that are necessary to kind of enhance your pages. So I took some notes beforehand. So I'm going to build this up a little bit at a time, so we could take a look at it. Actually, let me start a new document here. Maybe I can keep two on the screen at the same time. Might be a little easier also. All right, so the first thing that I would like to go over is the concept of hiding information that's on the screen. And I'll start to type some of the stuff here. And as I do this, I will explain what I'm doing. And I'm just going to keep the same names also, the C1, C2. I'm just going to keep writing over the same files. It's just easier for me in order to create it. So let me do, I'll start off with the HTML file. No, this is my JavaScript. I meant this one. Okay, fine. So I'm going to start off with, hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to start off with, give me 1 minute here, with my, I already have the head here, and I'm doing C1. I'm going to start off the body, and inside, I don't think I even need the body to have this body over here. If I wanted to attach CSS to it, I would need that. But for this example, I'm not going to go and put that in. Inside of my body, I want to put in I'll make a paragraph tag. In general, it's good to put paragraph tags. Sometimes I don't, because I don't know, because I want to get by. I want to show the example as fast as possible. Click the button below. Click the button below. I'm going to close my paragraph here. And hold on, let's move this out of the way here. I'm going to make a button. I already have a button here. I'll just do it again. Here, I'll steal this. Okay, button. And I am going to use the on click now, but I will show you another way to do this after I do this example. I'll call it my function. Again, it could be called anything you want. And I'm going to call this, I don't know, click. And I should also point out that I will be giving you an in-class example in a moment, right after this. So it's worthwhile to take notes or do something while I'm doing this. I will send you the code if you want as to help out. All right, so now that I've done this, I'm going to make one more. I'm going to make another location here. I'm going to call this, I'm going to make a div. I'm going to call the ID is going to be equal to, again, it could be any name. I'm just going to call it my div, because I can't think of anything else creative right now to do. And I'm going to close it. I always close it as soon as I open it to make sure that I don't forget to close it. And over here, I'm going to say, I don't know, this is my div element. This is my div element. All right. And right, so let me make sure I do this right. Click the button below. on click, this is the click button. Okay, so my goal here is to do the following. Up until now, if we wanted to get rid of these words, this is my development, we pretty much cleared we like reset this ID. We set it equal to nothing. I don't want to do that. I want to keep the text here. I just don't want this to appear anymore. So in order to do that, I'm going to change the using JavaScript to change the CSS. So what am I? Let me do a few things here. First, let me make a saving it. I'm going to make the CSS. I'm calling this one. This is T1. This is T1. So I'm going to do a T1 and make a new file here. New. And I'm going to save it as. Save as. I'm going to call this C1. C1.css. So I'm going to make some CSS here. And what do I want to do with my CSS? I'm going to do #, which stands for ID, pound my div. And I want to make a few settings for my div. What I want to set in it, I want to set, let's first set the width equal to 80% of the screen, 80%. And now I want to do the padding. Let's do padding, top. We'll make this equal to 50 pixels. I'm just trying to make some, make it look a little nicer for the example. 50 pixels, I'll do the padding bottom, 50 pixels also. Padding bottom, I want the text to be centered. Text, align is going to be center. I want to do, I'll make a background color, I'll make it light blue. Again, you have to make, if you're going to do a color here, you have to make sure that it's built into the browser. And I'll just change I'll do the margin. I want to make sure it's justified. So margin left, auto, and margin right. Right auto. Great. All right. Now that I've done that, I want to save it. And of course, I have to put this, I have to make sure that my document has the CSS as part of it. So I'm going to go back to, I haven't done any JavaScript yet. I'm going to go back to here and I'm going to put in, how do we do it again? Oh, right, I do a link, right, href equals, what's equal, it's what I call it, c1.css. And what is it? It's going to be Java, it's going to be style sheet. Style sheet. And is that all good? I hope it's all good, right? I'm not even using this yet. Basically, it's just, let's see how this looks. Go back to over here, run it, and there it is. Beautiful. All right. Again, it doesn't really do anything yet, but this is, now I'm going to show you how to get rid. My goal is to do the following. When I click this button, I want this to disappear. It's still going to be there, but I was going to disappear from the screen. And once we know how to do that, we can actually start to do a lot of more interesting, we can do a lot of interesting things with your document, because you can make stuff appear or disappear, but still be there at the same time. So let me put my function, it's called my function. So I'm going to make, on click, go to my function. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to call this my function. And my function, I want to do the following. I'm going to show you another new concept here also. I'll make a new variable, I'll call it X, because I could call it something else. I'm just going to call it X right now. Document dot get element by ID. I'm just going to steal the code here, so I'm going to type the whole thing out. Document dot, oh, I spelled that wrong, didn't I? Document get element by ID, and I called it my div. So what this line does over here is this X now has all of the characteristics, all of everything that I was able to do, like for example, the value or the length or the different things, the different things we're able to associate with this element. Now X has that. So I can, instead of writing this whole thing out each time, X contains that information. And so what do I want to do here? I want to do, I'm going to introduce to you now the if statement. And let me just change this here. And I'll explain if more in a minute. I'm going to do if. Now, an if statement is evaluated, whatever inside the parentheses, it's going to either evaluate it to true or false. So I'm going to do if X dot style style dot display is equal to none. If it's equal to none, then I'm going to make X dot style dot display is going to be equal to black. And I'll explain this in a minute. Let me get to work first. BLOCK is equal to black. Else, that's an if. And I should really, to be a good programmer, I should probably put in a curly brace there and a curly brace over here. Else, I'm going to open up another curly brace. And I'm going to say else X dot style dot display is equal to none. Now I'll explain all this in a minute. I just want to make sure that it works. We have, make sure I didn't type anything wrong, display, black, if X dot style, okay, fine. So let's see if it works. I'm going to run here. I'm going to reset my page. I'm doing Control R. So, right, if display spelled wrong. If you can't hear me, then you have to log back in and out. I don't know. Where is display? Display spelled wrong. Okay, hold on. Thank you for letting me know. Good, thanks. Let's run this now. And I'm going to click this, and we see that it disappears. It's still there, but meaning the text is still, everything is still there. It's just not showing up. To prove that it's still there, I'm going to actually do a right click, and I'm going to view page source. And you could see in the page source, this is still there, right? Didn't actually, up until now, we've gotten rid of it completely, but now it's still there, but it's just not being displayed. We're hiding it using CSS, which is a powerful feature. So now let me spend a few minutes explaining what we've done here. I have already explained what this X is doing. This X is pretty much going in and removing. It's getting this element by ID. That everything that's contained inside of this object is now part of X, which includes all the styles. You were able to actually get all of the different styles, the color, the text size, every single feature of it now is contained inside of this X. And we could check and see those styles as we go and run the program. So in this case, I have x.style is I'm getting the style. There's something called display, and this display actually we could set inside of the CSS as well. Watch here. If I change my display here, remember this is the my div display. I could actually default it. I could do display. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to say hidden. Okay. Now I saved it. I'm going back to my document. I'm going to do a refresh here. So by default, did I do something wrong here? Oh no, I should have done none. You got to remember, it should be none, not hidden. None. So I'm going to run this, and I'm going to run it again. And so we see that by default, this is actually set to display none, which means it's not going to display. But if I would click this, all of a sudden, well, it's going to reappear. Why is it going to appear? Because it was none before, and now it's picking up that it should be displayed. So this display is part of the CSS. What I'm trying to say is all of this information is inside of this X because it has this entire object. So let me go on now. So if this display is equal to none, and with the if, you could use the following. With ifs, you could have Often if you want to check something is equal to a text string, you could use triple equal signs. The double equal sign should also work as well. Let me just prove that by running it right now with double. So it works with a double too, but if you're going to be comparing it with a text string, it's best to use 3, but I often use 2, but either one is going to work. So we have x.style.display. If it's equal to none, then we want to change it. We want to say the x.style.display is equal to black. The black is the opposite. The none means nothing's going to appear, and the black means that it will appear. So that's my condition here, and this is going to evaluate either true or a false. If it's true, if this is true, the target of the if is inside of these curly braces. So whatever happens, so if it's true, whatever is sandwiched between this open curly brace and this closed curly brace will execute. Else, if this was not true, else the other thing, what are we going to do? We're going to set the x.style.display equal to none. So if it's currently none, we're going to make it, we're going to set it to black. If it's currently black, it's going to be set to none. And you can have multiple lines inside of your conditional statement. You don't have to have just one. I could put other stuff in here. I don't really have anything else on my page to go and do, but I could put other stuff in here if I wanted to. You also could have something called an else if. You could, if this is not true, then if this one's not true, else if this is true, else if this is true, and I'll show you that actually in an example that we'll have in a minute. The conditions that you could have inside of here, we could have here. So that's the first example I am showing you. You could do other stuff as well. For example, let me see if I could. Let's do the following. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes to do an in-class assignment. The in-class assignment should do the following. And then afterwards, I'll go through it as well. And I'll leave my code. This is what I'll do. I'll leave my code over here. What I'll do is, just so you can see the code, and if you want to use it, I'll put both screens on, and I'll swap this to my other screen. Move to the view. You don't want this one. Probably want this one here. Hold on. This one. Move to the view. Right. So this is my HTML, and this is my my function. What I want you to do is the following. I'd like for you to write a program, write a small, you could use similar code to prompt the user for a password. The password could be anything you want. If they get the password correct, then display, after they press click, after they click the button, display the equivalent of this. Say, I don't know, password is correct. Otherwise, this one should not be displayed. So in other words, instead of having click the button below, you have the words, enter a password and have a text box here. And then you can do submit, and it will only display the information if they get the password correct. All right, fine. So you could begin that now, and I'll give you about 5 minutes to go and work on it, and we'll continue from there. So let me go over the solution now. Let me go over the solution, and let me get my notes out so I'll make sure they don't get off track here. All right, so fine. So it's kind of similar to what we had already. I'm going to keep the CSS the same, right? I put the CSS on the board there before. The CSS is going to remain the same, I believe. But I'm going to first change up the HTML somewhat to make that represent the password. I'll say here, instead of doing, let's say click on, I'll say enter the password perhaps. Enter the password. Enter the password. And then the button's going to say, I don't know, I'll say, what do they say? Submit. And I'll going to keep it my function for right now. And over here, I'll say, you got the password. You got the password. Oh, but I have to make a box for the password, right? I have to put an input text. So I'm going to have enter the password, and here I'm going to have input. And again, you should always have your notes on hand because we did something, all this input we did in the last example at the beginning with the calculator. So you should always have your, I don't know if you somehow you have your notes ready I don't mind copying and pasting, you know what I mean? That's what I do all the time just to save time. Text, I'm gonna have the value is gonna be equal to password. That's what it'll be by default, password, and I'm gonna have an ID is equal to, again, you can make up anything you want, but I'll call it pass check because I'm checking the password. And that's going to be my input box. All right, make sure that looks okay. Hold on, let me go back to over here. Okay, I'm going to run it, enter the password. All right, and it says happy right now because in the end, I could always clear this out. And it's going to say submit, and right, it's going to run my function on submit, and only when I go and I put and by the way, this is not this is not displaying now, only because I have display equal to none here, right? If I would get rid of this, and I would run it, we'd say you got the password, which is kind of silly because that's the whole point is to get the password. So it's right now the display is equal to none. Okay. So now that I have that, I'm going to go to my JavaScript. I'm going to put it into the other, just easier for me if it's in the other view here. So I'm going to move it to the other view. A little bigger. All right, so now what I'm going to do here is my function, I'm going to have the following. I'm going to have this, I'll make this, I'll call this X. No, I'll have var pass for the password the user's entering in is going to be equal to document get element by ID. All right, and here it's going to say, I think I called it pass check dot value. And I just want to do an alert to make sure that this is working so far. So I'm going to do pass. I'm going to make sure this is working. So I'm going to run it over here. I'm going to run it, and I'm going to say the word, I don't know, happy. And it should say happy on the screen. It does. Good. Okay, fine. So I know that I got this is working. I got the pass. I have the input. That's what so far, and that's good. So I'm going to delete this now. I don't need this. That was just for testing purposes. And now that I have that, I'm going to say this. I have the X already. I already have this, the get element by ID, my div. And I want to put all of this inside basically another condition. I'm going to say if what? If pass, if the password double equals, and now I need a password. I don't know, I'll do ABC123. Okay, whatever it happens to be. If the password is equal to ABC123, then I want to execute what's inside of here. So I'm going to say if it's equal to it, then if I guess it's only going to be displayed if it's if the display is equal to none, then I want the display equal to the block. I'm going to close it here. Right. So again, this is I'm doing conditional here. I'm saying if the password is equal to ABC123, then if the display is equal to none, I want to set the display equal to block, so it'll go and show it. Otherwise, actually, let me just, I don't even need this over here probably. I can get rid of it. I can just make it even shorter. Right, I wanted else what else, meaning if it's not the password, then I want the display style equal to none. So let's see if this works now. I'm going to run it, and we're here, and I'm going to put in, I don't know, put in some crazy letters. I'm going to submit it, and nothing displays. But now I'm going to put in, what is it, ABC123. I'm going to submit it here, and it'd say you got the password. So this is an example of being able to really this is obviously not secure, because if you would, there are ways that even though when I show the page source here, you're not going to see the JavaScript, so you don't actually see the password, but you see the result of what is inside of there. So you don't think that you can make a secure page by using this method, but it's an example of how you might want to go and base your input on something that the user goes and puts in. We're going to have another example similar to this in a little bit that I'm asking you to write a program and base it off of. So just to make this a little nicer, I guess the proper thing would be is, again, at the very beginning of the code, to have an onload. The same way I had an onload in the last example, I could have an onload here. So when the program loads up at the beginning, you might want to clear the actual, like over here, I would have an onload command. So when the page loads, I'm not going to do it because I did it before, but this, we could clear out the password, the current password that's there. By the way, there is a way to put in over here. I think if you make it equal to a password, let me look this up. Hold on a second. I don't do this so often. I use CSS for it, but I think there is HTML input password. I think if you make the type equal to password, yeah, if the type is equal to password over here, let me just show you really fast. It's worthwhile to know. If the type is equal to password, it will automatically asterisk it out. Right? Because I'm typing stuff here and it's not gonna show up because it automatically types it out. You could accomplish the same task utilizing your own CSS, but it's nice to know that this is built into the system. And so it's good. I just put in ABC123 and it displays. So it displayed. So it's worthwhile to know. All right. Are there so a good idea that was that you might want to do is if the wrong password is put in, you might want to actually say wrong password. So let's figure that out. Okay, this is where would that show up? I'm resetting the page right now, and let me actually get rid of this what I did there before. Let me get rid of my where is it? HTML. All right, type. So it should be text. Right, text. TEXT. Okay, fine. So in order to do that, actually, I would have to have somewhere for it to be displayed. So maybe I'll put it next to the word submit. Fine, I can do that. So next to the word submit, this box here, I'm going to put another div in. I'm going to have, I'll put a div. I'll make the ID equal to, I don't know, P result. I don't know, for password result. SULT, password result. Okay. And currently it's going to be equal to nothing because nothing is there. Right? I want to change this P result only if the password is incorrect. So let me go over to my, I'm saving it. I'm going back to my CSS here. And if the password is equal to 1, 2, 3, then display it. Else, I want to do a few things. Else, I want to make my, I'm just doing a paste here. I want to make my document about a guy ID dot, hold on. I'm going to copy this whole thing here. Document going to be result, right? And now I want to change here the inner HTML. So let me get that. I'm just going to steal that from somewhere else so I don't have to retype it because I don't remember how to type it. 1 second. Here, inner HTML. Got inner HTML is equal to incorrect. Incorrect. And which also means that I want to make this, I want to take this over here, and if they get it correct, I want to make it equal to not incorrect, right? So let's see if this works. I'm going to run it, and I'm going to type in like this, submit, incorrect. All right, I'm going to type in the correct ABC123, submit, and we see it works. If I type in incorrect, incorrect. So yeah, so that's how I would accomplish. I mean, I would, the basic things. You probably want to make it nice and neat, cleaner, everything in one line. We could, talk about doing that a little bit later. But overall, that's how I would type in incorrect. You could actually replace the text in the box here if I wanted to. I could actually do this. I could, instead of putting incorrect there, I probably could have put it inside of the box itself. I could have said the get element by ID, this pass check equal to the incorrect. You can do it either way. You know, if you want to write over the actual password they put in, they might still want to see it. So there are a variety of ways you can go about that. I don't want to minimize. I kind of brushed over this if really fast here. If is an extremely powerful programming tool in all languages, right? Whether it's JavaScript or Java or PHP, and all languages have some type of conditional statement. And this conditional statement, you have a few different ways of approaching it. I'm telling you this also because we will have an example also like this in a few minutes. You could do stuff like this. You could test almost, anything that's testable. You could test. I'll make, for example, I'll do a variable. I'll make num1. I'll set num1 equal to, I don't know, 10. Oh, let's make a quick here. I'll do a quick example. All right. I'll deviate what I was going to do. I'm going to keep my text here in order to, because the next example I need this, but I just want to make sure that you understand the concept of this if. I'm going to, I want to make a really quick program that tests if a number is even. Should be simple enough, right? So how would I go about doing that? Well, first I need my HTML. So let me get dealing with my HTML, and instead of having enter the password, again, I'm gonna just comment this out right now because I know that I want to get back to it in a minute for the next example that I have prepared for you. So I'm just gonna comment it out really fast. And right, okay. And so I'm gonna say enter the number to test. Enter the number to test, okay? And the user is going to put the number inside of a text box, right? So I'm going to do this, and it's going to be text. I'm going to say I'll call it the in-num for the in number. I don't really need this here. I don't need a value at all. Actually, I just have them do that. I'll make the ID equal to in-num for the in number. In-num, and that's it, right? Then I just need a button to check to test it out. Test it out over here, and I'll do test. Test for even. Test for even. I'll make a capital. Test for even, and I'm gonna call it even test. Even test. Okay, so all good. And my result, I have to put my result somewhere. So I'll make a div, call it my div just because I already have it here. And yeah. Okay, and I'll change the text of this depending on if it's even or not. Okay, so now that I have this, let me just check my HTML out here. So it now should be something like enter the number to test for even. Okay, so I will now go to my JavaScript. I got to remember all the names here, right? I unclick do even test. So I'm going to go here to, I'm going to change, again, I'm going to comment this all out. I'll just start from scratch and I'll take this all out in a minute. So I'm going to just comment this out so I can go back to it in a minute. Okay. And there. All right, so fine. It's called even test. Just so I can remember that I'm going to write the word even test. And I'm going to have, when they click it, where's my click? Second. All right, this is going to be called even test here. Even test. And I want to check and see if the number is even. All right, so it shouldn't be too hard to do. First, I have to get the number itself. So I'm going to get this from here, paste it there. I'm going to have the number. Num is going to be equal to, what did I call it? I called it in num. Back here, this is called in num.value. I want to make sure that the number is a want to make sure that the actual number is. I want to parse int it. So I'll do a parse int. I'll say num. I'll do num is equal to parse int num. I could have done it all in one line, but I just already had it in a copy in the clipboard, so I just do parse. So now I have a number here. Finally, let me just test it, make sure that's working so far. Num. So it should say now. I should get the number itself. Put this in. I'm going to do 34, test their number. I have the number 34, good. So now this is where I'd use my conditional, my if. I'm going to say if, I already have my number here. Now, the way that if works is as follows. You have the word if, open and close parentheses. The entire conditional test goes inside of parentheses. So in this case, I'm going to do if num, I'm going to do mod 2. So remember that the mod gives you the remainder. So if the remainder of the number divided by 2 is equal to 0, so then I know that for sure the number is going to be even. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to do again. I'll just change this. So get element by ID, and I want to change the inner HTML. I'm going to change the inner HTML equal to even. Okay. So if it's divisible by 2, it's going to be even. In this case, I'll do else. If I could have tested if it's divisible by 3 or 4 or whatever, I can do a bunch of different things. In this case, I want to do it by, I just have 2 options here. Else, document.get is in, no, it's not in num. It should be result, right? This here, my div. My div is equal to even, otherwise my div is going to be equal to odd. I think that's good. Let's make sure this works. Run it. I'm going to run it now. Test for number. I will test for the number 12. Test for even number. Oh, it didn't work. Oh well, let's see why not. I know I had the number right. If num mod 2 is equal to 0, document get element by ID dot inner HTML is equal to, that looks good. Let's take a look. Alert num. Make sure I got this right. Still, alert num. I get that number. Okay, so that's good. If num mod 2 is equal to, if num mod, well, let's try this. I'll troubleshoot it here. I'm going to do num mod 2 there and see what happens. I'm going to 0, right? So that should have worked. If num mod 2 is equal to 0, then, so it must be here. Document.get element by ID mod this, my div. It's my div, right? Let's make sure here. ID is my div. It says you got the password. Nothing else is there. It should work. Is equal to even. Otherwise, it's equal to odd. Let's do another. Let me make sure that everything is working good here. Hold on. See if I get an error message here. Ah, you know why it's not working? I'll tell you why it's not working. No, don't. I'll tell you why it's not working. This is an example. We talked before about syntax errors. We talked about different problems that different errors that come up that are more difficult to troubleshoot. The reason why it is working, you just don't see it, right? Let me go back to my CSS here, right? My display is equal to none. I never wanted my display equal to none, right? So now I got rid of that. I got rid of that CSS there. Let's see if it works now. So in other words, it was working, I think, right? Well, now it says you got the password. So let me run this again. You got the password was, oh, I'll just have nothing here, right? Take this out. I'm running it, and there. So now nothing is there. Test for even. It's going to say even. Let me get rid of that. It's not very nice looking with that thing that keeps popping up. Get rid of that. Run it again. Run it, and we'll have test for even. This says even. I'm putting the number 3 in. Test for even. It's going to say odd. I can make a little space here to make it look nicer. So it was working before, but because I had the display to none, it wasn't actually going and showing up. So that was the issue. So it was working with my own, the program was working fine. I just my own, problem that I made the display equal to none. So a few more things about this condition here, conditional statement. I mentioned before that I'll do an example here. If the number is divisible to its even, I'll do this else if. I'll do another else if. I'll say else if the number divided by mod 3 is equal to 0. Then I'm going to say divisible by 3, right? And then I could keep going on. I could say if it's divisible by 4, well, 4 is also even, but but my point is I wanted to demonstrate the else if. You could have an if, and you could have an else if, and it'll keep going down the ladder of as many as you want until the very end. And the very end, if you have an else at the end, then that will basically go and be the default. For example, I should give this to you as a in-class assignment right now, but I'll do it because I have another in-class assignment coming up that I'll have you spend time on. Let's say, for example, you want to see your grade. That's a good example, right? The students I'm going to have over here. Let's go back to our example. Enter your semester grade. Enter your semester grade. So you're just going to go and they're going to enter their semester grade. I'll get rid of this piece so it's all in the same line. I'll leave it there. It's okay. So they're going to enter the grade. I'm going to change the ID to grade just because to be consistent. They're going to enter their grade. And here I'm going to say get my letter grade. Okay, so here's a good example. So the user is going to go, and I'm going to make a little break here so it looks a little nicer. I could put in a margin inside of the CSS, but this is much quicker. And I'll go back here. Okay, so get my letter grade. Why didn't that show up? Get my letter grade. There should be a space here. Why not? Don't know. Well, I don't know why it didn't show up, but that's okay. So I'm going to get my letter grade. So they're going to test on. I'm going to change this to get grade. I'm going to copy this from here to here and get grade. So the grade is going to be equal to, grade is going to be get grade, right? Grade. And let me make sure that this is working out for me. I'm going to do an alert grade. Make sure that this is all working so far. Run it up. I'm going to do, let's say, get a 78. I should see. Oh, I might have an error because I no longer have this code there. So let me get rid of that for a second. That might be messing me up. And let me take this here and put this over here. I see there's and take this, okay. And grade is misspelled. Thank you. Grade. Where did I misspell it? Hold on the HTML. Okay, thank you. Okay, fine. Oh, yeah, okay, well, because it's not grade, it's grade, right? Should be grade. Good. Everyone's paying attention. It's great. Okay, run it again. Make sure this works. Get my letter grade. Let's see. I'm missing a. It says here. This is always good to have your console on to see if there's a problem. So it says I'm missing a parenthesis in my function. Let's see where that is. And open up my function here, and if, hold on. This is close that, alert, grade, parse, int. This should be fine. Hold on 1 second. Document grade is equal to that, get val.value, then grade is equal to parse into that. You would think someone says it might be missing a curly brace, but I'm kidding this over there, and it is down there. It's open, so I think that it's okay. Run it again. grade. Okay, there. So 76. Okay, good. So it's showing up. That's great. So now I want to actually show the letter grade. So how do I do that? First, I want to make sure I have access to this document get element by ID. I'm just going to quickly go here. I'm going to turn this into a, so I don't got to keep typing this. I'll make this X. I'll make var X equals to get element by ID. And I'm going to get the box over here, over there, my div. And I'm going to change this to my div. And that should be enough for that. And let me just make sure that I'm correct with this. I should be able to, now that I have that, I should be able to say something like x dot inner HTML is equal to, I don't know, make this test. I want to make sure that I'm able to have access to it. Instead of typing it out each time, I want to see if I can do it this way. X get element by ID my div, x dot inner HTML is equal to test. Let's just make sure that this works. I'm gonna run it, and we see test. Good. So I want the grade to show up there. This is a powerful feature that that's being displayed now, right? Because now instead of typing this whole out each time, I'm able to just go and put it in this X. So now I am going to do an if statement. I'll do by grade if, and let's go. You always have to think if you want to go up or down as far as grades. So I'm going to say if the grade, if grade is greater than or equal to, this is a good example. I'll show you all the different things that it could have. So you could have equals to, that's if something's equal to it, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and you have less than or equal to. So those are the main ones. I also showed you mod before. And you could also reverse everything with a not. And if I have a time, I'll show you an example later on with the not operator. But in general, if grade is greater than or equal to a 90, then I want to say you got an A, right? Then I'm going to have else. I'm going to say else. I'm just copying in here. Else, if grade is greater than or equal to an 80, right? I'm going to say you got a B. Now, you're seeing a very bad habit of mine. A very bad habit of mine is I'm not putting in, I told you always need curly braces. And I should be putting a curly brace here and closing it with a curly brace. If you don't put in a curly brace, you're only able to execute one line of code. So my code would have worked because it's only one line of code, but it's not the best programming practice because it's a good habit to always have an open and closed curly brace to make sure that even if it is only one line, but it would work if it's only one line of code, you don't have to have the curly brace there. But I'm going to put it in because I should be teaching you good habits. Okay, else if it's greater than that, it's going to be a B. I'll change that to a B in a second. This should be, you got a B, and then I'm going to put it here, I'll make it a C, right? If it's less than a 70, if it's greater than or equal to a 70, you got a C, right? That works, and it's only going to execute one of these. As soon as this condition is fulfilled, it bypasses, it jumps through all of the other ifs. So it's not going to say you got an A, you got a B, you got a C, because obviously if you get a 90, that includes an 80, which includes a 70, which includes a 60, and so on. But as soon as you hit one of these conditions, then you're done with that original conditional statement. And they have a 60 here, and you got a B, C, D, right? And else, so at the very end, the final else here, I'm going to say else, open and close my brace here, I'm going to say you did fail, or you failed the course, or something like that, right? Okay, so I think that should work, but notice all the ifs that I have here, right? Okay. So, things gonna work, we'll find out. I'm clearing it, and let's say I get a 92. Enter my grade. Got an A, excellent. No, let's say I got a, I don't know, 74. you got a C. And of course, if I get a 32, you did fail. So excellent. So this is a good example of conditional statement. All right, so fine. So this is, again, I want to point out a few details here. We're using the greater than equal to. We have all these other ones as well, is equal to, and I'll get to the not in a bit. I demonstrated the mod. I'll talk about logical operators. Maybe if there's time today, I'll talk about them today. Otherwise, I'll talk about them next time, which is the and the ors. We'll try to get that. Talk about. I think we actually touched upon that in the past, but I'll talk about that again later on. I want to get to the next example to make sure that there's time in class for you guys so I can cover all the material that I want to cover. And what I want to cover is next is, I'll give me a second here. I want to go back to the last example for a minute that I had. I said I was going to go back to the previous example, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. I want to get rid of all of this, all my hard work here, and uncomment this and uncomment that. This is how we had before. And I want to go over here. No, here, and get rid of all of this up to here. All right, fine. Getting back to this example, enter the password, and I'll show you why I'm going back here to this step in a minute. Let me make sure that this works. Run it, enter the password, 32, submit. No, this shouldn't be saying that. Oh, because I took out I should have gotten rid of the style here, right? I should have in my style, I should have over here, I should have, what is it? Display none, right? Display is none. All right, I think that's right. Make sure this works. We'll run it. Display none. Submit. Display none. Password is going to be ABC123. Submit. And where is it? 123 ABC. ABC123. That worked. Why didn't it show me? ABC123. Hold on. ABC123. Well, now I got to figure out why reference my function is not defined. Why is this not defined? Hold on a second. Right. So the problem was that I changed the name to my function. It should have been my function. It wasn't my function. All right. So fine. So up until now, in order to execute my function, in order to get the my function to invoke, right, we had to do it from the HTML side. In HTML, I put in on click my function. So that will run the my function on the JavaScript side. There will be, I'm going to show you now, and you're going to ask, what's the point of this? Why would I want to do this over the other, why would I want to? You can accomplish the same task a few different ways, and there are advantages to doing it the way that you currently know, and there are advantages later on to doing it another way. So I'm going to show you another way to invoke the function. So I'm going to get rid of this one right now. I'm going to get rid of this code here. So now it's literally just a button. It's just a button with no special code that's being invoked when I go and click it. So when I click submit here, if I run the code, right, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's showing up. But I want something to happen. I want to check and see if it's actually going to go and submit the password to get the result. So in order to do that, as always, we need some type of identifier. So this button is going to have ID, and I'm going to call it, I'll call it pass click for password click. Pass click. So fine. So now, at least, nothing. It's not going to change yet. I'm going back to over here. It's not going to change yet, but at least I know that it has an ID that I could do something with it. What am I going to do with it? Okay, so everything else here remained the same. I just want to try to invoke this button click in a different way. So inside of my functions, inside of my program here, I'm going to change stuff around a little bit. what I'm going to do, I'm going to, give me a second here. I get up to, all right, 1 second. All right, I want to, hold on. Give me 1 moment here. All right, so I have to, before my function here, this is where I touched upon at the beginning of class this time around. This class, I'm going to put the window dot on load is equal to function, open and close my curly braces, parentheses, and then a curly brace here. And I want to make sure that I do something at the very beginning of my of when the page actually renders, when it loads. And again, I want to make sure this is actually working, so I'm going to do an alert. Otherwise, I don't want to go on if it's not. I'm going to say hello, run, back to here, run my code, and I see the word hello. So good. So I know that something is running as long I know that my JavaScript is executing as soon as the page goes and loads. So what do I want to go and do? Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to get my a command here. I'm going to do the following. I'm going to make what's called an event listener. An event listener. So I'm going to do document dot, again, get element by ID, get element by ID, and I want to get this. I think I called it pass check. Pass check. Did I capitalize it or not? Yeah, it is case sensitive, so you have to know if you capitalize or not. Pass click, I called it. Pass click. Password click. Pass click. And now I'm going to do the following. I'm going to do dot add event listener. It's built into the language, event listener. What an event listener does is it will basically stay in the memory of JavaScript, and when that event, an event might be a click, it might be a rollover, it might be a focus, meaning you're in a specific box. It might be, you could have many event listeners, and once that event listener happens, once it's invoked, then it's going to run this specific function. And there's a few different ways to write it. You could, I could send this to you in the text if you want to copy it this way. If I have time, I'll show you a few other ways that it could be invoked, a few different ways that you could write an event listener. But in my case, my event I want to write, it's again open and close parenthesis, I want to do it on a click. So when this element by ID is clicked, right, then what do I want to go and do? I'm putting in a comma here. I want to do a function. And the function takes it open and closed parentheses. And this is where now I'm just going to get rid of all this other stuff, because this kind of is everything that I want to do inside of this event listener. I'm going to get rid of this for a second. Oh, this is all inside of there here. I'll do this. I'm going to copy all of this. Pretty much I just want to copy everything from here and put it inside of there. I'll make this neater so you can see everything on the same screen. Right? I'm going to make a function, and the function is going to be, again, I'm going to get this, the password is going to be equal to the pass check dot value. Is that the same thing as before? It's going to be hold on. I put in, pass check, that's fine. Right, then I'm going to make my div equal to that x. If it's equal to 1, 2, 3, then do that. Otherwise, do that. And at the very end, here, this takes care of this. And this I have to put in. I have to close everything up. So I actually have to put in a curly brace, and I have to put in this and that. Assuming I did it correctly, make sure I did this correct. Yeah. See, do you see how this turned white and that turned white, right? and then I have to close it all up over here. And if this works, I will show you. I will demonstrate. I'll go through it again to explain why everything happened, why everything worked. So again, on Windows unload, when Windows loads, right? I could do a lot of things. I could do an alert. I could do whatever I want. But one of the things I want to do for sure is I want to make this event listener. This event listener that I'm choosing to do is a click. When what's clicked, when I'm checking the password is clicked, I want to run this entire function over here. I want to run this entire. I want to run all this. And hold on a second. I seem to be missing a. Hold on. Missing something here. What's missing? This is to that. This is to that. And this should be. Hold on. This should be that. It should be that. I see. Okay, so hold on a second. Function. That's not right. That's not right. This should have its own closing thing. I copied and pasted too much here. Hold on a second. Let me check this out again. Hold on. Document ID pass click is equal to that variable that if that and that else if that that. Fine. I close this up and let's just see what happens. I don't think it's going to work actually. Let me just see if I get an error message. Let me just do a quick alert. Alert. Hey. Let's run this again. I'm going to submit. Yeah, see, I'm missing a semicolon somewhere. On load function. Right, so I was missing just this one little, because it's a function. Functions always start with an open curly brace. I took it out before. I don't know why I took it out. Anyway, so I'm saving it, I'm running it, and I'm putting in the password, submit. We see now that this button works. This button works even though I don't have over here inside of this button when it's executing a on-click event. It's working all within HTML. Make sure it works here. If I do 1, 2, 3, ABC 1, 2, 3, ABC 1, 2, 3, or was it the other way around? Okay, yeah. So you got the password. All right. So this is used. Like I said, these event listeners are used all the time. They're used all the time, especially if you're doing like mobile programming, where you're programming something for the phone or even for the mouse. You could detect if you wanted. I can make an event listener. We don't have time in this class, or that we just don't have the time to go through all the different event listeners. But I can make an event listener when the mouse moves to the right, or if it moves, if someone clicks up, left mouse button, or when the wheel on the mouse goes up or down. You could make all these different event listeners that come in extremely handy for like mobile devices. If there's a double tap, if there's all these different events through this event listener. And it's the only way to do it. Like, I don't know how you would check for like a double tap anywhere on the screen, but you can set the entire screen all on this Windows as an event listener when the page loads. All right, so I'm going to keep this code. I'm actually going to send you this code in the text box because I think you're going to need it in a minute after you'll need it in a few minutes after I show you the next thing I want to show you. All right, because I want you to experiment with it. Did you get it? Yeah, I sent it to you. Yeah, I got it. Okay, fine. So no, I don't know. Here. I sent it to now. I sent it to once. Okay, try this one more time. Hold on. And there. Okay. Okay, good. So what I want to show you next is you could take a little bit of a breather. The next concept I'm going to show you is a much easier concept, and this is what it is. I'm going to show you how to generate a random number. And the random number, I think that to continue our programming, it's very important to know how to make randomness, because once you know how to make random numbers, you're able to make anything random. You could deal with, I don't know, random colors. You could deal with, once you know how to make something random, then you're able to, the exercises we do could be a lot more fun, or I should say more fun. So how am I going to to make a random number. It's very easy. I'm gonna make a function, and again, it doesn't make a difference if it's on load or not. I'll make it on load just because it already exists, and I'll do the following. I'm gonna get rid of all this because I don't need this anymore. Okay, so when my program it doesn't have to be Windows on load, but for our example, I think it will be easiest to do it this way. So what I want to do, I'm going to I'll make over here. Let me go back to my HTML for a second. To my HTML, I'll make a very basic example here. Okay, I'm going to get rid of all this. All right, just get rid of it. And I'm going to make a new. I'll make a new button. Okay, I'm going to make a button. Button ID is going to be equal to set number. This is just an example. You can name it anything you want. Set num. All right, and I'm going to close this. I'm going to name. I'll say set the number or get a random number. Get a random number. I'm going to close this button. Close the button. Okay, make sure to see how this is looking. All right, get a random number. And of course, once we get the random number, we have to show it somewhere. So I'm going to set up over here. I'm going to say div ID is equal to, what should we name? We'll name it a number. A number. All right, fine. A number. And this, run it. Okay, fine. So I want to get a random number here. So, all right, this is my HTML. So begin my JavaScript. I'm going to have the following. I'm going to make an event listener. I'm going to do document dot get element by ID, get element by ID, and I named it. So I always have to go back. I always forget the names. I'm clicking on my button over here, set num. Right. So get element by ID, set num. What I want to go and do, I want to add an event listener. So I'm going to do add event listener. And what I want to do, I want to click. When it clicks, I want to make a function. Function, open and close parentheses, open up my curly brace, right? And inside of here, all I want to do is I'm going to set my document dot get element by ID. And I want to get this location here. I want to get what did I call it? I called it a number inside of quotes, right? I want to set the inner HTML equal to, and now here's how I want to make a random number. All right, so instead of just throwing in random number, I'll show you a way we could do this. Hold on a second. I'm going to make a function. I'm going to call it get random number. Get random int. And basically, I'm going to pass in a max. And give me a second here. I'll explain this all in 1 second. Return. I'm just making it a little bit easier to. It looks like I'm making it more complicated, but actually I'm making it easier to get around the number. Floor math.random times. I'll explain this all in 1 minute. Random times math floor max. And close this up, close that up, and I just need a few more things here. Let me just put in over here, this should be a curly brace, semicolon, and I need to close this up, fine, this is good. So, and then finally over here, I'm gonna make this equal to get random int 100. All right, so let me explain what I just did. Okay, the important thing is I created a function, and what's this function going to do? This function is going to return a random number. How is it going to return a random number? This here pretty much just makes a random number. This math.random makes a random number. It's built into Java. It makes a random number. I wanted to do more. I just didn't want to make any kind of random number. I wanted to make sure that the random number I had was between 0 and the max that I'm going to put in over here. So I made this little function, getRandomInt. GetRandomInt takes in a number as a parameter, as we spoke about before. In this case, it's going to take in 100, and it's going to return a random number from this math random times the floor. This is going to, if we here, this is, I guess, the best way to explain what random does is by demonstrating with an alert. Okay, I'm going to do an alert math.random. Okay, and now when I run this, assuming I don't have any errors here, we see this number here. It's like it is a random number. Well, as random as you could get in computers. Nothing is really random. But like I'll run it again. You see that this should be a different number, right? 0.11. I'll run it again, right? This time it's point, whatever. So you're getting some type of decimal here. So in order to turn that decimal into an actual number, I take this. Remember, the floor goes and rounds it down, and this gives us a number, an actual random number. So I get that I get the decimal number here. I multiply it by the 100, and so that will give me a number from 0 to 100. So that's pretty much all you have to know about this this random feature. But in my case, I wanted to make the inner HTML equal to the random number, and assuming I didn't make any mistakes here in my coding, it should work. Let's see if it works. Let me get rid of I got rid of the alert. Let me get rid of this alert here and run this program. Get around the number, and I click it. It doesn't work. Okay, where's I'm not getting any mistakes there. Is everything set? This is a number.innerHTML is equal to getRandomInt. And this, let me just make sure my random int works. A alert, and I have getRandomInt. Let's make sure this works. Okay, run it, and this is 72, right? Let me run it again. I'll run it again. This is, so I see that that's actually getting a random number. How do we go and make, so it's something with my document element by ID a number. It is a number here, right? A number, div. Let's do one more test here really fast. Get set, the inner HTML is equal to getRandom. Now this should work. Let me just do a quick test here to make sure that it works. I'm going to just change my, oh no, it should work. Hold on a second. Let me just do a quick test here. Is equal, let me just make it equal to, I don't know, world. Let's see if the inner, show you to world now. Let's see, it's not showing up out here. Why not? See, it should say the word document a number, div ID a number. I press that, a number here, save it there, and save it here. Huh, hold on. In any case, I think I had the correct code here. I don't know why it wasn't working before. I think it's because I didn't refresh the page. Let me do that and this. And I'm going to, hold on a second, I got rid of something here. There. I'm going to run it again. See, one second. I'm going to do Control F5 this time. Get random number. Now it keeps saying world. Oh, because I got rid of the wrong thing. Okay. Run it. Finally, there we go. All these different random numbers. It seems like a lot of work to get around the number. Once you know how to get around the number, you could really do a lot of different things. You could, for example, get a random color because you just have to get, different color codes. Or you could make, we'll learn about arrays where you get random words. What I'm going to ask you to do right now, I'll give you about 10 minutes to do it, and I will show you my code. And if you want any of the code in order to save yourselves the time to so you don't have to code and make accidental typos. I'll happily give you any code that I have. Is I would like for you to try to make a guess number game where the computer gets a random number, let's say from 0 to 100 or whatever, and then the user types in a number and it will say higher, lower, higher, lower, and eventually it's going to say correct. So that's what I want you to do now. And you have all the skills to do this. You now know how to make your random number. You have conditionals, so you know if something's greater or lower than, greater or less than, and you have the ability to change text boxes. So you're able to make this program, and that's what I'm going to ask you to do right now. All right, so let me go through this this guess number program. I'm going to start off with the HTML and bring this to the other screen. All right, and I'll explain each step as I go through it. I'll do my best to anyway. So it's not a big program by any means. Let me just start everything from scratch. Okay, here we go. So all I'm keeping so far is the CSS. I'll probably change that in a minute, and my JavaScript page, but I'm probably gonna have to refine that a lot. So I want to start off with the following. I want to start off with I have to do just thinking about it. I have to make sure that a random number is first generated on the side of the computer. I want to make sure there's a random number. So if anything, I think that this was probably the most difficult part was to get a random number. So how do I want to do that? Well, the first thing I want to do is this. I want to do the following. I'm going to keep this function. I'm going to get rid of this because I read this over there. I'm going to keep this function get random because I really want random number. And I want to make sure that there is a random number. So I'm going to do the following. Once the program loads, I'm going to do a variable. I'll make a target. I'll call it target. Target is equal to, I'm going to call my function get random int, and I'll make it from, it's actually, this is going to return, if I do this, it's going to make from 0 to 99. So I'm going to actually make it +1. So now it actually be from 1 to 100. And let's just make sure that this works. I'm going to actually get rid of all of this right now. I don't need, hold on, I don't need, I'll make this again when it's necessary. Okay, that way we could keep it all together. And this is my function for a random number. And let me just make sure that my random number works. I'm going to make var. I'm going to make alert target, I spell it right, target, and I'm going to run this now, right? Basically, this is nothing in it yet. I just want to make sure that I'm able to get around. And this is what I mean by building a program really step by step. Hold on, I lost my window here. Okay, here. So I'm running it, and we see there it got 56. I'm running it again, make sure it's random, 93, whatever. Okay, fine. So I have a random number. So the biggest there's a few ways that you could hold on to random number. And when I said before that that this is the hardest part, it's because you have to try to think of how to hold on to this random number. The truth is, you probably could have just kept target because it only loads once. So target will always hold that random number. But I want to show you another way that you could have. I want to show you another way that you could hold on to that random number. The way that I want to do that is I'm going to go back into my HTML, and I'm actually going to put in some divs at the bottom that are going to be useful for me. I'm going to make a div. I'm going to call it ID is equal to, I'll call it target. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to put a div over here. And I want to actually set right now this target equal to the random number that I just generated. And we know we've done this many times already, right? I just want to, inside of here, once I get my target, I'm going to do document dot get element by ID, and I'm going to call target dot inner HTML is going to be equal to target. Excellent, target. Now let's make sure that this worked. So again, all I've done so far is I've gotten a random number, and I'm setting my number inside of here equal to, and it worked there. You see how it's 62. Great. But you know what? I don't want the user to see that number. I don't want the user to see that number. So how can I make it so the user doesn't see the number? Well, there are a few ways I could do it, and one way is the way that we learned before. I'm specifically going to go to my CSS. Where is it over here? I think it's over here, right? My CSS is over here, and I'm going to make it pound target, and I'm just going to set display none. Display none. So now I actually have the number that I'm trying to get is on. It does exist, but you just don't see it because it has display none. And I could use that, and you'll see later on. We're going to use a feature like that later on in this, to build our program later on. I actually want to comment this out though right now because I want to make sure that I see it for testing purposes. So I'm going to set it to block right now, so I should be able to see it. Let me just make sure, run it. Yeah, so I see it right now. But didn't save this. Hold on, this, save, and go here and run it. Okay, fine. So now I have my random number, and we know it's 88. Great. Next thing I want to do is I want to make a text box for the user to put in. So the first step was to get that random number, and I called the target. Perfect. So I want to get a text box. We all know how to make the text box, right? We're going to, inside my body here, I'm going to type in an input, type is equal to text, and the value is going to be equal to my guess. We'll say, well, I don't even need a value. I'll just say ID is equal to my guess. That's the number that the user is guessing, my guess. Good. And then I have to make sure that there is a button here. Button ID is equal to, and we can call the thing ones. We'll call it checknum, right? And I'm going to call it check, and close my button. Okay, is it looking good so far? And I'm going to need something else here. I'm going to have check info. Div ID is equal to check info. Close this, that. Okay, fine. All right, let's make sure this looks okay so far. Run here, run it, and so here. So I have my hidden. This number will be hidden later, but for right now I have a box here and the word check. Okay, I think I'm done more or less my HTML right now. Now I'm going to go into my JavaScript. Inside my JavaScript, I've already got my random number. I set the number. I put the number on the page so I could have access to it later on. And I want to now make. When the user clicks on it, I want to check everything out. So again, I'm going to do document get element by ID, and inside of quotes I want to put in, what was it called? It was called checknum, right? Right, get element by ID, checknum. I'm going to add a listener, and when the user clicks on it, click. I want to do a function, click, close this function, open and close my parentheses here, open up this, and let me, again, before I do anything else, I just want to make sure that my check listener is working. So I'm going to, I want to close this along with this and that. All right, let's just make sure that my listener is working. So I'm doing alert, and I'll do hello again. Hello. Run this, and if I click this, I should see the word hello, and I don't. See, it's a good thing I checked my listener. What am I missing here? This is there. This closes that. I think I'm missing actually no, it should be working. Alert, event listener, click, check num. over here is working for, this is the button check over there. And let me go back to here for 1 second. Do Control F5. Yeah, I spelled something wrong here. Hold on a second. Typo by document. Document. Good catch. Document. All right. There, excellent. Okay, good. So fine. See, it's a good thing I can continue on. I was, check it out there. Great. All right, so now that that is done, I want to get the actual number itself that the user put in, right? So I'll make a variable var. I'm going to do the user's guess. So I'll do guess is equal to document, not doc type, dot get element by ID, get element by ID, and what do we call it? I always have to check to make sure I get it right. I called it, this is my guess. My guess, right? Dot value, and I'm going to do value. I could put it in one step, but it's easier. Is going to be, I have to make sure it's parse int. Parse int, guess, right? Parse int guess, and this is to make sure we get it correctly. I'm going to do alert value. Let's see that, make sure everything works. I'm going to put in 50. Check. Well, what did I do wrong here? Parse in guess is equal to document element ID my guess dot value. That should work. Guess is equal to parse and guess. Okay, and now I want to do guess. $50. Good. Okay, fine. Good. So now I have the guess that the user put in. Now I want to compare that to the target, and this is where we start to do all the checking, right? So I'm going to say if the user's guess is less than the target, then I want to do something. What I want to go and do, I want to set my document get element by ID, and I want to change this over here, check info, get element by ID dot check info. I want to make it to, if they guess too low, that I want to say guess too low. I want to say, should I say too low? I'll say too low. That is equal to too low, or I say higher. I guess you could say I'll say higher. Higher. HIG, higher. So that's if they guess too low. Check info is okay. Else, if, again, I'm just going to copy this whole thing here. Else if it's greater than the target, right? I'm going to say lower. Else, I'm going to say you win. You win. All right, let's see if this works. I'm going to run it. Do I have any alerts here? No. I'm going to run it. Now, we do know we're cheating here because we know the number's 23, but let's just run it anyway. I'm putting 50 as a first start. That's going to say nothing. Why not? Document ID check info. Oh, inner HTML, that's why. .inn inner HTML. .inner HTML. Run it again. I'll put in 50. It says higher. Okay, I'll do 80. It says lower. Great. I'm going to do 75. It should say higher. I'm gonna do 77, and you win. Look at that. That's cool. We're using a lot of the features that we've used during class, which is very useful. Right here. So let's try it ourselves. We'll do 50, check. Higher, we'll do 75, check. Lower, so we know that it's between 50 and 75. We'll do 68. What do you think? Higher, we'll do 70. Kind of fun, right? 72. You win. Okay. All right. This is what I want you to do now. Right. We have time for it in class. Oh, I don't think we have time for it in class. But I will. My next part that I wanted you to do, which I will do it now with you, is I wanted you to keep track, to keep count of how many tries the user has. All right. How could we go about doing that? Well, there's a few ways to do it. The way that I'm going to approach it is I want to put in a number, another into my HTML here. I want to put in something else. I want to put in another hidden div that I'm going to use as my counter. I'm going to name this guesses. Okay, and this will keep track of how many guesses the user has taken. All right. Should I give you this for homework instead of me doing it? No, I'll just, I don't know. This is a good, but yeah, that's actually, I'll do it with you right now. It's fine. So guesses, I'm going to keep track of guesses here. So how am I going to keep track of guesses? Well, now that I have this, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, inside of my onload, I want to make sure that guesses is 0. It becomes nothing because it will remember it from time to time. So I want to set my guesses equal to, take this, put it here. Inner HTML is going to be equal to nothing, right? So now that it's going to empty it out when it loads. Every time the user makes a guess, I want to increase my guesses. All right, let's try that. Let's go to, I'm going to do the following. If they take a guess, our guess is their value, parse int guesses. If it's less than the target, I want to do the following. And each time it's clicked, I want to do the following. Also, I want to get the get element by ID. Let me take this over here and put it over here. Let me lower this so you can see everything. Right. I want to make my guess var the amount of guesses, the guess count, I'll call it guess count. I'll make our guess count is going to be equal to get element by ID guesses dot inner HTML. Okay, and I want to make sure that it's an integer, so I'm going to parse int it. I'm going to parse int document. So now I have each time the user goes, I'm gonna know exactly how many guesses there are, and as soon as they make a guess, right, I want to increase my guess count. So every time they click this, I'm gonna do guess count plus plus. Let's see if this works. Right now, it's still being displayed. I will eventually want to make this hidden, but for right now, it should be being displayed. I'm gonna run it, and I'll start off with 50. I'm gonna do click. Check, nothing's being displayed. Why not? Let's make sure I did this right. Because I didn't set it back. That's why. Because inner HTML is still that I want to change my guess count plus plus, and then I want to set it equal to the guess count. Copy this, and I'm going to do over here is equal to guess count. Now let's run it. Run it 50, and we see that should have worked. Let's see, guesses. Let's see why it didn't work. We have inner HTML. Let's give it a value first here. Let's give it, I don't know, hello, save it, run it. So I don't see it here at all. So did I spell it right? G-U-E-S-S-E-S-S. I don't know. Div.id is equal to guesses. That should work. Oh no. You know what the problem was? This was red before. I never saved it. Whatever. All right, so fine. So it's working, this thing. I need to make sure that's working correctly. Run it. We see the first time down, it's not equal to anything. I take a guess, and it should be equal to nan. That's interesting. Why is it nan? Well, let's make another guess. Let's do 75. Oh, I get a nan here. Why did I get a nan? Because it's not reading it as a number. Let's see why not. Get in by because I want to set this equal to 0. Probably. Not a blank spot. Okay, 75, take a guess. Now it's equal to 1. It's lower. I'm going to guess 50. So we see that this is actually changing now. 1, 2, 3, like typos. Even though I have all the code on another screen that I have usually, but when I make mistakes, it's not bad because you can see how to troubleshoot. All right, so fine. So it says lower here and higher there. So I'm almost there. I wanted to actually say each time how many turns it's taking me. So let me quickly do this. And each time I'm making a guess, it's actually changing. So I want to put over here, I'm going to say, I already have get element by ID. Guess count is, or I have guess count. So I could say here higher, higher. I could say guess number. And I have a plus sign here. I'm going to put in guess count, another plus sign, open up quote, close my parentheses, and close it over there. All right, so fine. So now I'm going to do higher. I'm going to do over here, lower, right, lower, guess number that. And finally, you win. I'll say it took, I'm going to have guess count plus GUE, guess count, capitalized, guess count, tries. All right. Now, let me actually make this a little bit more interesting. Let me go over here and let me go to my CSS and what's it called? What's my HTML here? My guesses. So I'm going to make a little more here. # guesses, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it display none. Display none. All right. Go back to my HTML, and let's see if this works. I'm going to run it, and I'm going to first guess 50. I'm going to check it. It says higher, guess number 1. Okay, 1 guess. I'll make 75. Higher. I'll make, I don't know, 90. Lower. Look, I get to play the game while I'm teaching at the same time. 85, higher. 87. You're so curious. You win. It took 5 tries. All right, but the fact is, you see, it's kind of fun. It's a good, example. I should have given it. Perhaps I should have given this as a homework assignment. I'll, maybe give something similar to this as a homework assignment, or maybe I'll make you add on to it. What I'll do actually is I'll post this code to Moodle to make sure that you actually have the same code that I have a few more. I actually have a few more enhancements, one or two more enhancements to this that I'd like to demonstrate. Maybe I'll give you that for homework. But I'll post this sample code to Moodle so you could play around with it if you want. Okay, I'm not going to continue on because I only have 5 minutes left of class. A few quick announcements is I'm going to probably this week post on Moodle a bunch of questions and answers that I want you to start preparing for the final. I think for the final it's going to be 2 parts. One is going to be a program to do, and one is going to be an online test. And to prepare for the online test, I'm going to give you a review test. The review test you are not graded on. Basically be very, very similar questions that are going to be on the review, that you'll see on the review, that will be on the actual test itself. I'll probably make the actual test itself just multiple choice and matchups. but I'll probably on the review, I'll give you some true or falses, some fill in the blanks. But basically, you could take it, I believe, if I set it up correctly, as many times as you want, as well as see your results. So I want you to use the review as a study guide for the actual final that you'll take. And it's going to focus mainly on the first, the 4 or 5 chapters that we did on CSS, as well as the one chapter that we did, I think it was chapter 9 or 8, whatever it was, on programming. But I want you to make sure I'm doing this to make sure that it's a solid review for you, and I'll try to get that posted within the next few days. It's a little complicated because I have to import questions from a database, but I'll get that up and running relatively soon. So make sure that you check on that. I'll post the homework assignment as well, homework assignments for this section, and probably some type of discussion question as well. So that's pretty much it for this week.